Everything seemed perfect when the millionaire took his daughter to the park, until a street girl interrupts by shouting, "I saw someone taking your daughter." Chaos ensues as he finds himself speechless, with his daughter disappearing right in front of him. In a race against time, he begins to unearth clues that point to someone very close to him. The street urchin may have seen something crucial, but does she know more than she's letting on? If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Tell us which city you're watching us from and we'll keep going. The sun was rising over the horizon when Eric Müller opened the curtains in his daughter's room. Sophia, with her brown hair disheveled and her face still marked by the pillow, slowly opened her eyes and smiled when she saw her father. "Good morning, Princess. Time to get up for school," Eric said, sitting on the edge of the bed. At 42, Eric was a successful businessman, owner of Müller Inc., one of the largest construction companies in the country. But nothing in his life was more valuable than that 7-year-old girl who was now lazily stretching out on the bed. Since Ingrid, his wife, had passed away 3 years ago after a long illness, he had dedicated himself entirely to being a father and mother to Sophia. "Dad, are you going to pick me up from school today? Can we go to the park afterwards?" Sophia asked with those brown eyes that always managed to convince him. Eric stroked his daughter's hair. The company needed him for an important meeting that afternoon, but seeing the anticipation on Sophia's face, he already knew what her decision would be. "Of course, Mila, I promise." While making breakfast, Eric checked his cell phone for messages. Marcus, his childhood friend and now the construction company's CFO, had sent several messages about the investor meeting. "Is it okay to postpone until tomorrow?" Eric typed. The response was almost immediate. "Again, Eric, the Japanese won't like it. This is the 3rd time." Eric sighed. Since he had taken on the responsibility of raising Sophia on his own, his professional life had changed drastically. It wasn't that he regretted it. His daughter was his top priority, but balancing responsibilities wasn't always easy. "I promised Sophia, Marcus. You can lead the meeting. I trust you." On the other side of the city, in a small apartment, Greta Schneider, a 9-year-old girl, was finishing packing her backpack for school. Her mother, Helena, a public school teacher, was preparing snacks for them both. "Mom, can I go to the park after school today?" "Bea said she's going with her parents," Greta asked as she zipped up her colorful backpack. Helena smiled at her daughter. She was a young woman, only 35, who had been raising Greta alone since the girl's father had abandoned them when she was still a baby. She worked hard to give her daughter a decent life, but times were hard, especially after the teacher's pay cuts. "I can't pick you up today, daughter. I have a meeting at school until late, but tomorrow I promise we'll go together, okay?" Greta's face showed disappointment, but she nodded in agreement. She understood her mother's difficulties and was a mature child for her age. At that very moment, Tobias Bauer, chief architect at Müller Inc., was typing furiously on his computer. At 38, he was considered a genius in his field, responsible for the company's most innovative projects. Eric had personally hired him 5 years ago, and Tobias had since harbored an admiration that bordered on obsession for his boss. "Good morning, Tobias," his assistant Anna said, placing a cup of coffee on his desk. "Eric just told me he won't be coming to the meeting with the Japanese investors." Tobias closed his eyes, holding back his irritation. This was the perfect opportunity to present his new project, a luxury residential complex that could revolutionize the city's real estate market. Once again, Eric was putting his personal life above business. "Did he say why?" he asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Something to do with his daughter, as usual," Anna replied, shrugging. Tobias sipped his coffee, looking out the window at the city skyline. Deep down, he envied Eric, not only for his professional success, but for his perfect personal life. His wife was gone, true, but she had left him a lovely daughter and a considerable fortune. Tobias, on the other hand, lived alone, dedicating himself exclusively to work. His last relationship had ended months ago, when his girlfriend got tired of competing with his architectural plans. "Anna, cancel my appointments for this afternoon. I'm going to finish the Primavera Complex project." The morning passed quickly. Eric dropped Sophia off at school and headed to the office, where he spent a few hours reviewing contracts and meeting with clients. At 3 p.m., as promised, he parked his car in front of the school and waited for his daughter. Sophia ran out. Her face lit up as she saw her father fulfilling his promise. She threw herself into his arms, covering him with kisses. "You really came, Dad. I always keep my promises, Mila. So, shall we go to the park like we agreed?" The little girl agreed enthusiastically. The park was just a few minutes away, a quiet, leafy place they often visited on the weekends. During the walk, Sophia excitedly told her about her day at school, about her new art teacher, and how she had made a special drawing for her father. "And what did you draw, Princess?" "It's a surprise. I'll only show it at home after the park." Eric smiled as he parked the car. The park wasn't very crowded that Wednesday afternoon. A few mothers with small children, some elderly people feeding pigeons, teenagers skateboarding. On the rink, a safe, family-friendly environment. "Dad, can I go on the swing?" Sophia asked, already pulling her father's hand in the direction of the playground. "Of course you can. I'll sit on that bench where I can see you, okay?" Sophia ran to the toys while Eric settled in, watching her with a smile on his face. These little moments were the ones he treasured most in his life, seeing her happy, carefree, living the childhood he had worked so hard to provide despite her mother's absence. His cell phone vibrated in his pocket. It was Marcus again. "Eric, the Japanese are angry. They're threatening to cancel the investment. We need you here now." Eric looked at Sophia, who was swinging happily, waving at him every time the swing reached its highest point. How could he disappoint her now? But also, how could he risk an investment worth millions that would guarantee the company's financial future, and consequently, his daughter's future? With a heavy heart, he stood up and approached the playground. "Mila, Daddy needs to make a quick call, something for work. Stay here on the swing. Don't go anywhere, okay? I'll be right there, where I can see you." Sophia pouted in disappointment, but agreed. Eric moved a few feet away, still keeping his daughter in his field of vision, and called Marcus. It was at that exact moment that Greta arrived at the park, alone. Against her mother's orders, she had decided to go meet her friend Bia, but when she got there, she couldn't see her friend anywhere. Disappointed, she was about to leave when she noticed something strange. Greta watched the man in the black cap as he walked slowly around the playground. There was something about his behavior that bothered her. He pretended to be playing with his cell phone, but his eyes were fixed on the little girl on the swing, the same girl whose father was away, absorbed in a phone call. Greta's intuition set off alarm bells in her mind. Her mother had always said that she was a very observant child, almost like a little detective, and at that moment, all her instincts told her that something was wrong. The man in the cap moved a little closer to the playground, looking around surreptitiously as if checking if he was being watched. Greta partially hid behind a tree, continuing to watch him. He was now smiling at the girl on the swing, who innocently smiled back. Across the park, Eric gestured nervously as he spoke on the phone to Marcus. "No, we cannot lose this investment. The Japanese need to understand that." His voice trailed off amidst the technical explanations about the project. Every now and then he glanced at Sophia, making sure she was still on the swing. The little girl was there, swinging happily, seemingly safe. "Eric, either you come now or we can kiss the 20 million goodbye." Marcus's voice sounded firm on the other end of the line. Eric ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Give me 15 minutes. I'll take Sophia home and head straight to the office." He hung up the phone and turned to go back to the playground. That's when his heart froze. Sophia was no longer on the swing. "Sophia," he called, walking quickly towards the toys. "Sophia!" His voice rose in volume as his eyes frantically scanned the playground. There was no sign of the girl anywhere. Eric began running around the park, asking everyone he met if they had seen a little girl with brown hair wearing a blue school uniform. Panic gripped him. His heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst out of his chest. How had he lost sight of his daughter? He had only been on the phone for a few minutes. "Young man!" A childish voice caught his attention. Eric turned around and saw a girl of about 9 years old with curly hair tied in 2 braids. "I saw your daughter," Greta said, her eyes wide with fear. "A man in a black cap took her." The words hit Eric like a punch to the gut. He crouched down, getting to the girl's level. "Did you see where he went? Please tell me." Greta pointed to a more secluded area of the park, near the parking lot. "He picked her up and walked out that way. He was wearing a black cap and a denim jacket." Eric wasted no time. He ran in the direction indicated, shouting his daughter's name. He reached the parking lot out of breath, looking desperately in every direction. Nothing. Just parked cars and the distant sound of traffic. That's when she noticed something on the floor, next to a trash can. Sophia's favorite doll, the one she always took everywhere, now thrown on the floor, dirty and trampled. A groan of despair escaped his throat as he picked up the doll. It confirmed his worst nightmare. Sophia had been taken. Meanwhile, at the Mueller & Key's office, Marcus paced back and forth, trying to calm the Japanese investors. Tobias watched the scene from a distance, pretending to work on his computer. "Eric's on his way," Marcus lied, smiling nervously at the men in crisp suits sitting at the conference table. "He's had a setback, but he'll be here in a few minutes." Tobias looked up from his monitor. "I bet it's something related to his daughter, as usual." The slightly dismissive tone didn't go unnoticed by Marcus, who shot the architect a disapproving look. "Tobias, why don't you present the preliminary designs while we wait?" Tobias nodded, standing up with a folder in his hands. Internally, he was seething with rage. Once again, he was being used as a stopgap for Eric's absences. Once again, he would have to show his brilliance without receiving due recognition. "Gentlemen," he began in fluent English, "I am pleased to present the Primavera Complex, a revolutionary project that will combine sustainability and luxury on a scale never before seen in this city." As Tobias led the presentation, Marcus's phone vibrated. It was a message from Eric, so desperate it made his blood run cold. "Sophia is missing. Someone took her from the park. I'm panicking. Call the police." Marcus paled, abruptly standing up from the table, interrupting Tobias. "Excuse me, gentlemen, we have an emergency." Tobias watched Marcus hurriedly leave the room, speaking into the phone in a low, urgent voice. Something had happened, something serious. Apologizing to the investors, he followed Marcus out into the hallway. "What happened?" he asked, reaching his colleague. Marcus hesitated, unsure whether to share the information, but Tobias was also close to Eric, part of the core team. "It's Sophia. She disappeared in the park. Eric thinks she was taken." The shock on Tobias's face looked genuine. "Oh my God, we need to help. I'm going to the park right now." "No," Marcus stopped him. "Eric said to call the police. He's already looking for her. The more people out there, the more confusion it will get. We need to be organized." Tobias reluctantly agreed. Deep down, he wanted to be there, to be a key part of the girl's rescue, to earn Eric's recognition and gratitude. Back at the park, Eric, with Sophia's doll still in his hands, found Greta. Again, who was waiting for him near the swings. "Did you see anything else?" "Any details might help," he pleaded. Greta bit her lip, trying to remember. "The man had a dark car parked over there." She pointed across the parking lot. "And I think he had a scar on his face. Here." She indicated her chin. "You're very brave and observant," Eric said, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. "What's your name?" "Greta Schneider." "Greta, can you help me one more time? I need you to stay here with this guard." She pointed to an approaching park security guard. "And tell him everything you saw. I'm going to go find my daughter." The EU girl nodded, determined to help. Eric knew he needed to call the police immediately, but before he could, his cell phone rang, an unknown number. With trembling hands, he answered. "Eric Mueller?" A distorted, unrecognizable voice spoke from the other side. "Yes, it's me." "Who is it?" "We have your daughter. If you want to see her again, listen carefully." The world seemed to collapse beneath Eric's feet. His breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, he thought he would faint. "Please," he managed to say, "don't hurt my daughter. I'll do anything." "You'd better," the voice replied. We want 5 million, cash, no police, no tricks. If we find out you've involved the authorities, you'll never see Sophia again." Eric heard a muffled sob in the background, his daughter's voice, and his heart broke into 1,000 pieces. "How do I know she's okay?" he asked, trying to buy time and think of a solution. There was a moment of silence, then Sophia's voice, frightened and trembling. "Dad? Dad, I'm scared. I want to go home." "Mila, it's going to be okay, princess. Daddy will pick you up, I promise." The call was abruptly ended, leaving Eric in a state of shock and despair. 5 million, an astronomical amount, even for someone in his financial position. Where would he get that much cash quickly? His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of a breathless Marcus, who had left the office in a hurry. "Eric, oh my God, what happened? The police are on their way." "Cancel it," Eric ordered, his voice firm despite the terror he felt. "No police. They have Sophia. If we involve the authorities, they'll hurt her." Marcus paled. "What do they want?" 5 million in cash. But that's impossible to achieve so quickly. Eric grabbed his friend's arm. "Nothing is impossible when it comes to my daughter's life, and I need your help." On the other side of town, in an abandoned warehouse in the industrial zone, Tobias parked his car. He looked around, making sure no one had followed him, before entering the dark, damp place. The abandoned warehouse smelled strongly of mold and rusty metal. Tobias walked forward slowly, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, illuminating the room poorly. In a corner, sitting on a chair, was Sophia. The little girl's eyes were red from crying, but she seemed physically unharmed. Beside her, a tall man wearing the same black cap Greta had. Described was smoking a cigarette. When he saw Tobias, he smiled sideways, revealing the scar on his chin. "You took your time," the man said, stubbing out his cigarette against the wall. Tobias ignored the comment, approaching Sophia. The girl flinched, scared. "Calm down, little one," he said, his voice trying to sound gentle. "Remember me. I'm Tobias, your father's friend. I work with him." Sophia's eyes widened in recognition. She had seen Tobias many times in Eric's office, at company parties. To her, he was the uncle who draws buildings. "Uncle Tobias," she murmured, confused. "Why am I here? I want my father." Tobias stepped away, unable to hold the child's innocent gaze. He turned to the man in the cap. "Is she okay?" "I didn't mean to scare her so much, Marcelo." Marcelo shrugged. "Children always cry, but don't worry, I didn't lay a finger on her. We followed the plan to the letter." "What about Eric? Has he gotten in touch yet?" "Yes, I asked for the 5 million as we agreed." He looked devastated. Marcelo let out a short laugh. You should have seen his face when he heard his daughter's voice. Pathetic. Tobias felt a pang of remorse, quickly suppressed by the ambition that consumed him. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The original plan was just a scare, a way to make Eric value the company more, dedicate less time to his daughter and more to the business. But when Marcelo suggested the possibility of extorting such a large sum, greed spoke louder. "What now?" Tobias asked, glancing at Sophia, who was now hugging her knees, crying silently. "Now we wait. Eric will get the money. He would do anything for this brat." Tobias nodded, looking away from the girl. "I'm going back to the office. I need to keep up appearances. You keep an eye on her." Before leaving, he approached Sophia again and tried to offer a comforting smile. "It's going to be okay, little one. Soon you'll be with your father again." The girl didn't answer. She just stared at him with eyes full of fear and confusion. Meanwhile, in the park, Eric and Marcus hatched a desperate plan. "I'll get the money," Eric said with steely determination in his voice. "I'll mortgage everything I own, sell stocks, empty my accounts, it doesn't matter." Marcus put his hand on his friend's shoulder. "Eric, we need to be rational. What if they take the money and don't give Sophia back? Have you thought about that?" The possibility made Eric shudder. "I can't think like that. I have to believe they'll keep their end of the deal." "Still, we need a plan B." Marcus lowered his voice. "I know someone in the police force, Rodrigo. We can trust him. He won't use Police cars or a uniform, he can help us discreetly. Eric hesitated. The fear of putting Sophia's life at risk was paralyzing, but Marcus was right. They needed professional help. Okay, contact him, but with absolute discretion. As Marcus made the call, Eric noticed that Greta was still nearby, sitting on a bench, watching them with curiosity and concern. "You're still here," he said, approaching the girl. "Your parents must be worried." Greta looked down. "My mom's at a school meeting. She doesn't know I came to the park." Eric sat down next to her. "You were very brave today, Greta. Thanks to you, I have a better chance of finding my daughter." "Are you going to find her?" the girl asked, with a seriousness that didn't match her age. "We will," Eric said, wishing he could feel the certainty his words conveyed. "And when we do, you'll be our hero." Greta smiled shyly. Eric picked up his phone and called Helena, the girl's mother, explaining the situation. Initially alarmed, Helena calmed down when she heard that her daughter was safe and had helped. In such a dire situation, she promised to go get Greta immediately. While they waited, Marcus returned with news. "Rodrigo is on his way. He'll meet us at your house. Do you think we should get out of here?" Eric nodded. The park, once a place of joy for him and Sophia, now seemed dark and ominous. "Yes, let's go. But first, I need to wait for Greta's mother to arrive." As if answering his request, a woman with curly hair like her daughter's appeared, running towards them. "Greta," Helena called, hugging her daughter tightly. "Are you okay? What happened?" Eric briefly introduced himself and explained the situation. Helena, horrified by what had happened, expressed her full support and gratitude for her daughter's safety. "If you need anything, please let us know," she said, taking Eric's hand sincerely. "I hope you find your daughter soon." Promising to keep in touch, Eric and Marcus left for the mansion in Jardins, where Rodrigo, Marcus' police friend, was already waiting for them. Rodrigo Alves was a middle-aged man with grey hair and a posture that exuded authority. He was dressed in civilian clothes as agreed, but his experienced gaze betrayed years of service in the police force. "Eric," he greeted with a firm handshake. "Marcus explained the basics to me. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Every detail." Eric reported everything. The trip to the park, the work call, Sophia's disappearance, Greta's testimony, the call from the kidnapper. $5 million is a specific amount, Rodrigo noted. "It doesn't look like an opportunistic kidnapping. They know you, they know your financial situation." The remark made Eric freeze. "Do you think that it's someone close?" "It's a possibility we can't rule out. Who knew you'd be at the park?" "Today?" Eric thought. "Nobody. It was a last-minute decision to fulfill Sophia's request." "And at the office? Who knew you wouldn't be there for the meeting with the Japanese?" "The entire core team, Marcus, Tobias, Anna, some other directors." Rodrigo wrote down the names. "We'll investigate discreetly. In the meantime, how do you plan to get the money?" Eric already had a plan. "I have about $2 million in personal accounts that I can withdraw immediately. For the rest, I'll sell company stock and mortgage properties." "This will take time," Marcus warned. "We don't have time," Eric exploded, pounding the table. "My daughter's life is at stake." Rodrigo intervened calmly. "Let's work with the time we have. When the kidnappers get in touch again, try to negotiate, buy a few hours. In the meantime, we'll track the call and the drop-off location." Eric's phone rang, startling everyone. It was the same unknown number. "Put it on speakerphone," Rodrigo instructed in a whisper. "Try to keep them on the line as long as possible," Eric answered in the firmest voice he could muster. "Hello? Have you got the money yet?" the same distorted voice asked without preamble. "I'm working on it. $5 million is not an amount you can raise in a few hours. You have until tomorrow noon, not a minute more." Eric closed his eyes, trying to control his despair. "I need to talk to my daughter. I need to know she's okay." There was a moment of silence, then Sophia's voice, weak and frightened. "Father, Mila, are you okay, my love? Are they treating you right?" Before the girl could respond with more than a sob, the distorted voice returned. "Tomorrow noon, bring the money to the abandoned warehouse of the old textile factory on the east side. Come alone. No police, no GPS, no tricks. One wrong move." And your little princess pays the price. The call ended. Eric looked at Rodrigo, who was already working on his laptop. We got it, the officer said. It wasn't an exact location, but it narrowed down the search area, and now we have a drop-off location. Marcus, who was watching the scene attentively, commented, I know this area. There are several abandoned warehouses, one next to the other. We will need to be strategic. Eric ran his hands over his face, feeling the weight of exhaustion and despair. Every minute away from Sophia was torture. He couldn't stop imagining the fear his little girl must have felt, alone with strangers, not understanding what was happening. I'm going to need help with the money, he said finally. Marcus, can you put us through to our contacts at the bank? We need special authorization for a withdrawal of this size. Consider it done, Marcus replied, already dialing numbers on his cell phone. Rodrigo continued working on his laptop. I'm mapping the delivery area. We need to know every entrance, every exit, every blind spot. As the two men worked, Eric felt strangely helpless. All his wealth, all his power as a businessman, none of it mattered now. He was just a desperate father willing to do anything to get his daughter back. His cell phone rang again, but this time it was Tobias. Eric, I heard what happened. I'm devastated. How can I help? Tobias's voice sounded genuinely concerned, but there was something Eric couldn't quite place, an underlying tension perhaps. Tobias, we're trying to figure this out. For now, I need you to take charge of the company. The Japanese were, sir. Don't worry about it, Tobias interrupted. I've already explained the situation to them without going into details, of course. They agreed to postpone the signing. The company is in good hands. Just focus on bringing Sophia back. Thank you, Eric murmured, feeling a surge of gratitude toward his colleague. That means a lot to me. What are friends for? Tobias replied before hanging up. Night fell over the city, bringing with it a light, persistent rain. At Eric's mansion, the hours passed with agonizing slowness. Marcus had managed to activate his contacts at the bank, ensuring that the money would be available the following morning. Rodrigo, in turn, had drawn up a detailed plan for Sophia's rescue. We will have men strategically positioned around the warehouse, the officer explained, showing a map of the industrial area. Sir, all in plain clothes, completely discreet. You will enter alone as they requested, but you will have a hidden microphone so we can hear everything. Eric nodded mechanically, his gaze lost in the photograph of Sophia on the coffee table. In the image, the girl smiled with bright eyes, holding the doll that was now dirty and crumpled in her father's hands. What if something goes wrong? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What if they see through the trap? Rodrigo placed a firm hand on his shoulder. They won't notice. We're professionals, Eric. We've been doing this for years. Your daughter will come home safe and sound. That's a promise. Marcus, who had just hung up yet another call, approached with a worried expression. The money is all right, but we need your signature on some documents. Eric picked up the pen without hesitation. At that moment, he would sign anything, sell anything to get Sophia back. The phone rang again. It was Helena, Greta's mother. Mr. Muller, sorry to call so late, but Greta is very agitated. She says she remembered more details about the man she saw in the park. Eric immediately put the call on speakerphone so Rodrigo could hear. Greta, what do you remember? The girl's voice sounded timid but determined. The man in the cap. He had a tattoo on his wrist. It looked like a strange symbol, like a spiral or something. And his car wasn't all dark like I said before. It was dark, but it had a red stripe on the side. Rodrigo quickly wrote down every detail. You're very observant, Greta. This will help us a lot. There's one more thing, the girl continued. When he picked up Sophia, she didn't scream or anything. It was like she knew him. The revelation made Eric and Rodrigo exchange meaningful glances. Could it be possible that Sophia knew her kidnapper? This made the theory that the crime had been planned by someone close to her even more likely. Thank you, Greta, Eric said, trying to keep his voice steady. You're being instrumental in finding Sophia. After hanging up, Rodrigo turned to Eric with a serious expression. We need to make a list of everyone who has access to Sophia on a regular basis. Staff in her household, drivers, teachers, co-workers she knows. Eric began to list names, but his mind was increasingly fixated on a disturbing possibility. If the kidnapper was someone he knew, someone Sophia trusted, who could it be? Meanwhile, in the abandoned warehouse, Sophia slept curled up on a makeshift mattress. Tobias had returned, bringing food and a blanket for the girl. "How is she?" he asked Marcelo, who was playing cards alone in a corner. "He fell asleep a little while ago. He cried a lot, asking for his father. Children are a pain." Tobias shot, his accomplice an irritated look. "It wasn't supposed to be like this, Marcelo. She shouldn't be scared." Marcelo let out a dry laugh. "What did you expect, a summer camp? This is kidnapping, my friend. There's no way to do that without scaring the girl." Tobias sat down, running his hands through his impeccably combed hair. In his mind, he relived the conversation with Eric hours earlier. The trust his boss had placed in him to run the company while he was away. The gratitude in his voice. A wave of guilt washed over him, quickly replaced by the memory of all the times he'd been passed over, all the promotions he'd passed over, all the projects he'd rejected because Eric was busy with family matters. "Eric has already activated the money," he said, changing the subject. "It will be in full by noon tomorrow, as we agreed." Marcelo smiled, revealing teeth yellowed by cigarettes. "Excellent. And then?" The question hung in the air, heavy as lead. The original plan had been to return Sophia after receiving the money, but lately Marcelo had been hinting at other possibilities. "Then we'll follow through," Tobias replied firmly. "We'll take the money, give the girl back, and move on with our lives." "What if there's a better plan?" Marcelo whispered, leaning forward. "What if we could keep the money and the company?" Tobias frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about taking Eric out of the game completely. Think about it. With him out of the way, who would take over the construction company? You, of course, the brilliant architect who has always been in the shadow of the great Eric Müller." The suggestion made Tobias recoil in horror. "Don't even think about it, Marcelo. This was never part of the plan. I would never agree to something like that." Marcelo shrugged, returning to his cards. "It was just an idea. But think about it. 5 million divided by 2 is 2.5 million each. With the company, you would have much more." Tobias stood up uneasily. "I'm going. I'll be back early tomorrow to check that everything is ready for delivery." Before leaving, he approached the mattress where Sophia was sleeping. The girl looked so small and fragile, her face still streaked with tears. Tobias felt his stomach churn. What was he doing? How had he gotten to this point? The plan had started as simple revenge against Eric for years of undervaluing him. The idea was just to scare him, maybe extort some money. But now, with Marcelo suggesting unimaginable things, Tobias was beginning to realize that he had lost control of the situation. Back at the mansion, Eric finally succumbed to exhaustion and fell asleep on the couch, still holding Sophia's doll. In his restless dreams, he relived the moment he realized his daughter had disappeared, the suffocating panic, the feeling of helplessness. He was woken up by Marcus, who brought a cup of strong coffee. "It's 6 in the morning. We have to go." "To the bank in an hour?" Eric nodded, rubbing his swollen eyes. He hadn't slept more than a few hours, punctuated by nightmares. He took a quick shower, trying to clear his mind for what lay ahead. As he dressed, his gaze fell on a photograph on the dresser. Him and Ingrid on the day of Sophia's birth. He had never missed his wife as much as he did at that moment. Ingrid had always been his rock, his safe haven. How would she deal with this situation? What would she say? "I'll bring our daughter back," he whispered to the photograph, like a solemn promise. On the way to the bank, Marcus tried to keep up a conversation to distract his friend, but Eric only responded with monosyllables. His mind was entirely focused on rescuing Sophia. "Have you spoken to Tobias today?" Marcus asked, breaking a long silence. "No. Why?" "Nothing specific. I just thought it was strange that he didn't show up last night to help. You know how he always tries to impress." Eric shrugged. "He's taking care of the company. That's help enough." Arriving at the bank, they were greeted personally by the manager, who led them to a private room. The process of withdrawing such a large amount of cash was not simple, but thanks to Marcus's contacts, everything was organized. The money will be delivered in used bills, not sequentially as requested, the manager explained, as Eric signed the last documents. Rodrigo, who was waiting for them outside, helped transfer the money into a reinforced suitcase. "Ready for the next step?" he asked as they walked to the car. Eric nodded, feeling a fierce determination rise within him. Now that he had the money, he was one step closer to getting Sophia back. Nothing else mattered. In the car, Rodrigo explained the entire plan again, making sure Eric understood every detail. "Remember, stay calm, don't show nervousness. Only hand over the money when you confirm that Sophia is okay. And most importantly, trust us." Eric's cell phone rang. It was the kidnapper. "Noon, shed. Number 7, come alone." The call ended before Eric could say anything. He looked at Rodrigo, who nodded, confirming that everything was according to plan. Meanwhile, in the shed, Tobias arrived for the final preparations. He found Marcelo alone, smoking. "Where is the girl?" he asked, alarmed. "Relax, she's locked. In the back office. I thought it best to keep her away during the negotiation." Tobias didn't like that, but he accepted the explanation. "Eric will be here at noon with the money. We'll stick to the original plan. We get the money, we release the girl, we each go our separate ways." Marcelo smiled, but there was something unsettling in his gaze. "Sure, boss, whatever you say." The way he emphasized the word boss made Tobias uncomfortable. Something was wrong, very wrong. And for the first time, he feared not only for the consequences of his actions, but for Sophia's safety as well. The clock read 11:30 when Eric, Marcus, and Rodrigo reached a spot near the abandoned warehouse complex. The area was desolate, with old ruined factories surrounded by tall vegetation, the perfect setting for a dangerous exchange like this. "I'll check the team's positions," Rodrigo said, stepping away to make radio contact. Marcus put his hand on his friend's shoulder. "It's going to be okay, Eric. In a few hours, you and Sophia will be home safe." Eric nodded, clutching the briefcase tightly. 5 million. An amount that had previously seemed astronomical. Now it was nothing more than a means to get his daughter back. "Thank you for everything, Marcus. I don't know what I would do without you." "That's what friends are for." Marcus looked around nervously. "Did Tobias call?" "No. Why?" "Nothing. It's just, he knows about the rescue today, doesn't he? I thought he might be able to offer help." Eric shrugged. "He must be busy with the company. Besides, the kidnappers were clear about me coming alone." Rodrigo returned, his expression serious. "Everything is ready. My men are in position. Now let's go over the plan one last time." As the police officer explained each detail again, Eric felt his heart race. The anticipation of seeing Sophia again soon battled with the fear that something would go wrong. "And, Eric," Rodrigo held, his gaze firmly, "promise me you won't do anything impulsive. Follow exactly what we agreed on." "I promise," he replied, though part of him knew that if Sophia's life was at stake, all promises would lose their meaning. At 11:50, Eric began the walk alone to warehouse number 7. Marcus and Rodrigo watched, from a distance tense as he approached the rusty structure. The microphone hidden in his shirt allowed them to hear every breath, every heartbeat. "I'm coming to the shed," Eric muttered, knowing he was being heard. Metal door, partially open. "I'm going in." The interior of the warehouse was dark and damp. A thin beam of light filtered through broken windows high above, partially illuminating the empty space. Eric took a few steps, his shoes echoing on the concrete. "Is anyone there?" he called, his voice reverberating off the metal walls. Silence. Then, footsteps. A figure emerged from the shadows. Marcelo, with his unmistakable black cap and the scar on his chin. "Eric Miller," he said with a cold smile. "We finally meet in person." Eric felt a chill. There was something familiar about that voice, even without the distortion. Where had he heard it before? "Where is my daughter?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "All in good time. First money." Eric held up his briefcase. 5 million, just like you asked. Now, I want to see Sophia. Marcelo gestured into the darkness, and a second figure appeared, leading Sophia by the hand. Eric felt his heart stop at the sight of his daughter, pale, frightened, but apparently unharmed. "Father," she cried, trying to run towards him, but being held back by the second man. That's when Eric froze, finally recognizing who was holding his daughter. "Tobias," he whispered in disbelief. The architect kept his gaze down, avoiding direct eye contact. His expression was a mixture of embarrassment and determination. "I'm sorry, Eric," he said quietly. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." The revelation hit Eric like a punch in the gut. Was Tobias, his trusted friend and colleague for years, part of this? The betrayal was so unexpected, so painful, that for a moment he was speechless. "Why?" was all he could say. Tobias finally looked up. "Years of working in your shadow, Eric. Years of watching my projects get ignored because you were too busy with your personal life. The company could be so much more under my leadership." "So that's it? Money and power?" Eric felt anger replace his initial shock. "You put my daughter's life at risk for greed." Marcelo interrupted the moment. "Very touching, but we have business to conclude. The money, please." Eric turned his attention back to the briefcase. He wanted to hand it over, pick up Sophia and get out of there as quickly as possible. But something about Marcelo's behavior was making him wary. His instincts told him that the man didn't intend to keep his end of the deal. "Let's do it differently," Eric said, stalling for time. "You send my daughter to me and I'll put the case down. She comes here, I go there, and we'll finish this." Marcelo laughed. "You're in no position to negotiate." "I'm the one with the money," Eric countered. "So yes, I'm negotiating." That's when Tobias intervened. "He's right, Marcelo. Let's do as he says. We already have what we wanted." Something in Marcelo's expression changed. A dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. "I don't think so. Tobias, I've changed my mind. Now we want more." Eric realized that the situation was getting out of hand. Tobias also seemed surprised by Marcelo's change of plans. "What are you saying?" Tobias asked, confused. "I'm telling you, 5 million is not enough. With Eric Muller and his precious daughter, we can get much more." Marcelo pulled out a gun, pointing it not at Eric but at Tobias. "And you're getting too soft for this business." The sudden movement made Sophia scream. Tobias instinctively pulled her behind him, protecting her. "Are you crazy?" "Marcelo," he shouted, "this wasn't the plan." Outside, listening to everything through the microphone, Rodrigo gave the signal. "The situation is escalating. Team, prepare to invade on my command." Marcus, pale, clutched the radio tightly. "My God, Tobias, how could he?" Inside the warehouse, the tension was palpable. Marcelo kept his gun pointed at Tobias, who was protecting Sophia. Eric, still holding the briefcase, was desperately looking for a way out. "Let's talk, Marcelo," Eric tried, stepping forward. "We can work this out. How much do you want?" "It's not about money anymore, Eric," Marcelo replied with a sinister smile. "It's about power. With you out of the way, who will take over Miller Inc.? The board, or perhaps your trusted friend, Marcus? Either way, it will be easy to manipulate the situation with suitable financial incentives." That's when Tobias made an unexpected move. He pushed Sophia hard towards Eric. "Run, Sophia," he shouted. The girl obeyed, running into her father's arms. Marcelo, furious, pointed the gun at them, but Tobias advanced on him, deflecting the shot into the air. The sound of the gunshot was the signal Rodrigo was waiting for. "Invade now! I repeat, invade now!" Within seconds, the warehouse was taken over by plainclothes police officers, guns drawn. Marcelo, taken by surprise, had no time to react before he was immobilized. Tobias, seeing himself surrounded, raised his hands in surrender. Eric, with Sophia clinging to him, cried with relief. The little girl sobbed in his arms, repeating, "Daddy, Daddy," like a mantra. "It's okay now, Princess," he whispered, kissing her hair. "I'm here. No one will hurt you anymore." Rodrigo walked over, nodding approvingly. "Good job, Eric. You're cool even in the worst situation." Marcus ran to his friend, hugging him and Sophia tightly. "Thank God you're both okay." As Tobias and Marcelo were taken into custody, Eric couldn't look away from his former friend and colleague. The betrayal still stung like an open wound. "Why, Tobias?" he asked as the architect passed him, escorted by 2 police officers. Tobias stopped, looking at Eric with a mixture of regret and defiance. "You never valued me, Eric. You never saw my potential. It was always your family first, the company second, and I was never on the priority list. So you decide to hurt my family, the most important thing to me." "Sophia wasn't supposed to get hurt," Tobias replied, sounding genuinely remorseful. "She was never in any real danger, at least not until Marcelo went crazy." Eric shook his head, unable to comprehend the twisted logic that had led Tobias to this point. "You know what's ironic?" he said, as the officers began to lead Tobias away. "I was going to promote you to CEO next month. I was going to give you more responsibility, more autonomy, because I trusted you." The shock on Tobias's face was visible. For a moment it looked like he was going to say something, but the words never came. The officers continued to lead him out of the warehouse, leaving Eric, Marcus, and Sophia in Rodrigo's care. "Let's get out of here," Marcus suggested, putting a protective arm around his friend and goddaughter. "This place is depressing." On the way home, Sophia fell asleep exhausted in her father's arms. Eric watched her, amazed to have her back, safe in his arms. The experience had been traumatic, no doubt, but together, they would overcome it. "What's going to happen to Tobias?" he asked Marcus, who was driving in silence. "He will answer for his crimes," the friend replied, "but that's a problem for another day. Right now, all that matters is that Sophia is okay." Eric nodded, gently kissing his sleeping daughter's forehead. "Thank you for being there for me, Marcus. I don't know what I would do without you." Marcus smiled in the rearview mirror. "I'll always be here, friend. Always." Finally home, Eric took Sophia to his room, tucking her carefully into bed. The girl woke up briefly, clinging to him tightly. "Don't go away, Dad," she murmured sleepily. "Never again, Princess," he promised, lying down beside her. "I'll never leave you alone again." 3 weeks had passed since Sophia's rescue. Routine at the Müller mansion was trying to return to normal, but the emotional scars remained fresh. Sophia, once a carefree and happy child, was now startled by sudden noises and rarely let her father out of her sight. Eric, in turn, had become even more protective, almost obsessive about his daughter's safety. Child therapist Dr. Helena visited Sophia 3 times a week. After that morning's session, she spoke with Eric in the office. "She's making progress, Mr. Müller," said the psychologist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a quiet voice. "But the trauma was significant. Sophia is still processing." "What happened?" Eric sighed, pouring the doctor a cup of coffee. "She has nightmares every night. She screams, she cries, she calls out. For me, it's heartbreaking to see her like this." It's understandable. Not only did Sophia have a frightening experience, but she also discovered that someone she knew and trusted was involved. It deeply shakes a child's sense of security and trust. "Tobias," Eric murmured, still unable to fully comprehend his former friend's betrayal. "He's in custody, awaiting trial. Marcelo, too." "How are you dealing with this?" Helena asked, watching him with professional attention. Eric hesitated. He wasn't used to talking about his feelings, especially with strangers. But in the past few weeks, he had learned that keeping it all to himself wasn't healthy, for him or for Sophia. "I'm trying. For Sophia. I need to be strong for her." "And who is strong for you, Mr. Müller?" The question took Eric by surprise. Since Ingrid's departure, he had become accustomed to carrying everything alone. Yes, he had Marcus, his loyal friend, but even with him, he maintained a certain emotional distance. "Mr. Müller," Helena continued, seeing that he didn't respond, "trauma doesn't just affect children. Adults need to process traumatic experiences too. Perhaps you should consider therapy as well." Eric nodded, more to end the matter than to actually agree. He walked Helena to the door, thanking her for her advice and scheduling Sophia's next session. Alone again, he headed to the garden where Sophia was playing under the watchful eye of Rosa, the housekeeper. The girl seemed more relaxed outdoors, picking flowers and talking to her doll. Not the original, which had been damaged in the kidnapping, but a new, identical one that Eric had bought in an attempt to restore some normality. "Father," exclaimed Sophia when she saw him, running towards him with a small bouquet of daisies. "Look what I picked for you." Eric crouched down, opening his arms to welcome her. "They're beautiful, Princess, as beautiful as you." Sophia smiled, but Eric noticed that it wasn't the same bright smile as before. There was a shadow in her eyes, a precocious understanding of life's hardships that no 7-year-old should have. "Has Dr. Helena left yet?" asked the girl, handing the flowers to her father. "Yes, but she's coming back on Friday. Do you enjoy talking to her?" Sophia shrugged. "She's nice, but sometimes she asks me things that remind me of that day, and I don't want to remember." Eric felt a tightness in his chest. How do you explain to a child that sometimes we need to face painful memories in order to move on from them? "I know, Mila, but talking about difficult things can help us feel better later. Like when you hurt your knee. It hurts when you clean it, but it's necessary for it to heal." Sophia seemed to ponder this. Was Uncle Tobias a bad person, Dad? The quiet question, so direct and unexpected, left Eric speechless for a moment. How could he explain the complexity of human actions to a child? "Tobias, he made bad choices, Mila. Good people sometimes do bad things when they feel hurt or angry. This doesn't justify what he did, but it helps us understand." "Was he mad? At you?" "I think so. He felt like I didn't value his work, that I didn't notice him enough." Sophia frowned, processing the information. "But why did he take me? I never did anything to him." Eric swallowed hard. "How did you tell a child that she had been used as a tool to hurt you? That the kidnapping was actually revenge directed at him? Sometimes when people want to hurt someone, they attack what that person loves the most. And you, Mila, are the person I love most in the entire world." The simplicity and honesty of the answer seemed to satisfy Sophia, who turned her attention to Rosa, calling her to continue picking flowers. Eric watched her thoughtfully. His cell phone vibrated. It was Marcus informing him that the lawyers wanted an urgent meeting about the case against Tobias and Marcelo. "I'll be there in an hour," he replied, reluctant to leave Sophia, even for a few hours. The atmosphere at Miller Inc.'s offices was tense. News of Tobias's involvement in Sophia's kidnapping had spread, causing a stir among employees and clients. Confidence in the company had been shaken, and several investors had put negotiations on hold. "We need a more aggressive communication strategy," argued Marta, the public relations director, "to show that the company is bigger than any individual, that we remain solid despite Tobias's betrayal." Marcus agreed. "Last quarter's numbers were down 20%. We are losing important contracts." Eric listened to everything with a distant expression. After what had happened with Sophia, business concerns seemed secondary, almost irrelevant. "Do whatever it takes, Marta," he said finally. "I trust your judgment." The meeting continued with discussions about restructuring, new projects, and replacing Tobias. Eric participated minimally, his thoughts constantly returning to Sophia, alone at home. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked when they were alone. "You seem distant." "I'm worried about Mila. She's still very fragile." Marcus nodded understandingly. "It's natural. Time and love will help her get over it." "What if she never completely gets over it? What if this scars her forever?" Eric's voice cracked. "I should have protected her better, Marcus. I should have realized what Tobias was up to." "Stop it," Marcus said firmly. "You are many things, Eric, but you are not psychic. No. One could have predicted what Tobias would do. He was our friend, a man we all trusted." Eric knew his friend was right, but the guilt lingered, eating away at him inside. Marcus, sensing his mood, changed the subject. "Did you hear that the mother of that girl, Greta, tried to contact her? It seems like the girl is worried about Sophia." Greta's name brought back images of the brave girl who had been instrumental in finding Sophia. Eric felt a surge of gratitude. "No, I didn't know. Do you have her contact information?" Marcus handed over a piece of paper with the number of Helena, Greta's mother. "I thought maybe a meeting between the girls could be good for Sophia. Greta is a little older, but they seem to connect that day." Eric considered the idea. Sophia had isolated herself since her abduction, refusing to see her school friends or participate in social activities. Perhaps meeting someone who had been part of that experience, but in a positive way, could help her. "I'll call her today," he decided. That afternoon, when Eric returned home, he found Sophia more excited than usual. She ran to him as soon as she saw him holding a drawing. "Look what I did, Dad, it's our family." Eric examined the colorful drawing. It showed him and Sophia holding hands, with Rosa and Marcus nearby. In the sky, a female figure with wings watched the scene with a smile. Ingrid, transformed into an angel by her daughter's imagination. "It's beautiful, Mila," he said, fighting back tears. "Let's put it on the fridge so everyone can see it." As they prepared dinner together, a new routine they had established, Eric commented on Greta. "Remember that girl in the park? The one who helped us?" Sophia nodded, concentrating on mixing the salad as her father had taught her. "She asked about you. Your mother called, wanting to know if you'd like to play with her sometime." Sophia stopped what she was doing, thoughtful. "Did she see the bad man taking me?" "Yes, and she was very brave to tell me and the police everything. She helped us find you." The information seemed to impress Sophia. "She's like a heroine then, one of those from your storybooks?" Eric smiled. "Yeah, I guess we can say that. She's a little hero." "Then I want to meet her," Sophia decided, returning to her cooking duties. "Can she come here? We can show her the pool and the treehouse." The excitement in his daughter's voice was music to Eric's ears. It was the first time since her abduction that she had shown any genuine interest in interacting with someone outside her immediate family circle. "Of course, I'll invite her and her mother to come over for the weekend. What do you think?" Sophia enthusiastically agreed and began planning all the games they could play. Eric watched, amazed at the child's resilience. In the midst of trauma, his daughter still found room for joy. Later, when Sophia was already asleep, Eric called Helena. The woman answered on the second ring, her voice reflecting surprise at hearing who it was. "Mr. Muller, it's good to talk to you. How is Sophia?" "Recovering, little by little." "Actually, I'm calling because I heard you guys tried to get in touch, and Sophia was really excited about the possibility of meeting Greta officially." Helena looked relieved. "Greta keeps asking about her. I think she's been very affected by the whole situation and somehow feels connected to her daughter." They made plans to meet for lunch the following Sunday. As he hung up, Eric felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in weeks. Maybe this new friendship was just what Sophia needed to begin healing her emotional wounds. Before retiring, he went to his daughter's room, as he did every night, to make sure she was sleeping peacefully. Sophia was curled up under the blankets, hugging her new doll, a slight smile on her lips. "Good night, princess," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "Daddy is here. I always will be." Sunday dawned sunny and mild, as if the weather itself conspired to make Sophia and Greta's meeting as pleasant as possible. Sophia had been busy since early morning, running around the house checking to see if her favorite toys were in order to show her new friend. "Dad, do you think she'll like my doll collection?" he asked for the third time, as Eric made himself some fresh lemonade. "I'm sure you do, Mila, but remember, Greta is a little older than you. Maybe she likes other things too." Sophia bit her lip thoughtfully. "Like what?" "Well, why don't you ask her when you get there? Part of the fun of making new friends is finding out what they like." The girl agreed, satisfied with the answer, and ran back to her room, where she continued preparing for the visit. Eric smiled, watching her. In the last few days, he'd seen glimpses of the old Sophia, curious, enthusiastic, full of life. The idea of meeting Greta had awakened something in her that weeks of therapy hadn't yet managed to do. At noon sharp, the doorbell rang. Sophia ran to the door but waited for her father to open it, as they had agreed in the new security rules established after the kidnapping. Helena and Greta stood on the porch, the mother holding a basket of fruit and the daughter a small package, wrapped in colorful paper. "Welcome," Eric said, opening the door fully. "Please come in." Helena smiled, holding out the basket. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Muller. We brought some fruit from our community orchard at school." "Please call me Eric, and thank you. You didn't have to bother." As the adults exchanged greetings, Sophia and Greta watched each other shyly. Finally, Greta stepped forward, offering the wrapped package. "It's for you," he said. "I made it with my mother." Sophia accepted the gift, her eyes shining with curiosity. Carefully, she undid the wrapping, revealing a small braided bracelet in shades of blue and lilac. "It's a friendship bracelet," Greta explained. "The color blue means protection, and the purple is for courage." Sophia was momentarily speechless, admiring the gift. Then, with a sudden impulse, she hugged Greta. "Thank you. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever received." Helena and Eric exchanged emotional glances, seeing the instant connection between the girls. "Come, I want to show you my room," Sophia said, taking Greta's hand and pulling her upstairs. The adults headed outside, where Rosa had already set up a table under the gazebo, overlooking the pool and lush garden. "Your house is beautiful," Helena commented, accepting the glass of lemonade Eric offered. "Very different from our little apartment." There was something about Helena's simplicity and honesty that appealed to Eric. Unlike the people he normally associated with, ambitious executives, wealthy clients, superficial socialites, she seemed genuine, without artifice. "Thanks. But sometimes I think it's too big for just two people. After Ingrid left, I thought about moving to something smaller, cozier. But Sophia loves this place. She grew up here." "I see. Our apartment is full of memories too. It's always been just me and Greta ever since her father, well, ever since he decided family wasn't for him." Eric felt an immediate connection with Helena, both raising daughters alone, both struggling to fill the void of a partner. It must be hard working as a teacher and taking care of Greta alone. Helena shrugged, a gesture that mixed pride and resignation. "We'll manage. Greta is an incredible girl, very mature for her age. She helps a lot around the house." From upstairs came laughter and exclamations of joy. The sound was like a balm to Eric, who hadn't heard his daughter laugh like that since before the kidnapping. "Greta hasn't stopped talking about Sophia since that day in the park," Helena continued. "She was very worried. She wanted to know if she was okay." "Your daughter is extraordinary," Eric said sincerely. "Without her, we might not have found Sophia in time. I will always be grateful." Helena blushed at the compliment. She has this gift of observation. She always sees things that others don't notice. Her teachers say she should be a detective when she grows up. The conversation flowed easily between them. Eric discovered that Helena taught literature and arts at the same school that Greta attended, a public institution with a unique pedagogical project. Despite the financial difficulties, she was proud of the work she did with her students. "And you?" she asked. "How are you managing everything after what happened?" Eric hesitated. It was a question many asked, but few really wanted to hear the honest answer. "One day at a time," he finally replied. "I'm focused on helping Sophia overcome her trauma. The company, well, Marcus has been taking care of most of the responsibilities." "What about you? Who takes care of you?" The question, so similar to the one Dr. Helena had asked days before, struck Eric deeply. There was something in Helena's eyes, an understanding, a genuine empathy that made him lower his usual defenses. "Nobody, I guess. I'm so used to being the strong one, the one who solves problems that sometimes I forget that I might need support too." Helena nodded understandingly. "I know that feeling well. Being a father and mother simultaneously demands so much of us that we forget to take care of ourselves." Before Eric could respond, the girls came running into the garden, their faces lit up with joy. "Dad, can I show Greta the treehouse? Please, please." Eric smiled, happy to see his daughter so excited. Of course, but remember the rules. No climbing too high and always ask for help if you need it. The two of them dashed toward the back of the garden where an elaborate treehouse, Project Eric and Sophia had built together the year before, waited. Sophia seems much happier than I imagined, Helena commented, looking at the girls, after what she's been through. She's strong, Eric replied, with a mixture of pride and concern. But she still has nightmares, still gets anxious when I'm not around. Her therapist says it's normal, that it will take time. Time and love, Helena added. That's what all children need to heal their wounds. Lunch was served shortly afterward, a relaxed meal, with the girls excitedly recounting their discoveries in the treehouse, and the adults enjoying the rare opportunity to talk to someone who truly understood their challenges. After dessert, an apple pie prepared by Rosa that drew praise from everyone, Sophia asked to show Greta the family photo album. "Can I show you pictures of my mother?" he asked Eric, his eyes full of expectation. "Sure, princess. Go get the blue album from the bookshelf in the office." While the girls leafed through the album in the living room, Eric and Helena remained in the garden, the conversation flowing to more personal topics. "How long has it been?" Helena asked softly. "Since your wife?" 3 years. Cancer. It was quick and yet endless. Eric took a deep breath, feeling the familiar pain but less acute than before. What about Greta's father? 8 years. He just walked away, said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he needed to find his way, never got back in touch. Eric felt a pang of anger towards this unknown man who had abandoned such an extraordinary woman and such a special child. "I'm really sorry," Helena smiled without bitterness. "I felt that way too, but today I realized that it was better this way. Greta and I built our own family, our own path, and we're fine." The afternoon wore on, and soon it would be time for Helena and Greta to leave. The girls, however, seemed determined to prolong the meeting as long as possible. "Can we have a picnic next time?" Sophia suggested as she helped put away the photo album. In the park near school, Eric felt a tightness in his chest. The park, the same one where Sophia had been taken. She hadn't set foot there since her abduction, always making excuses when anyone suggested stopping by. "Are you sure, Mila?" he asked carefully. Sophia exchanged a look with Greta before answering. "Yes, Greta said we can make good memories there to replace the bad ones. Isn't that right, Larry?" The older girl nodded seriously. "My mum always says we can't let bad places stay bad forever. We have to go back and do cool things there." Eric was impressed by the simple yet profound wisdom. He looked at Helena, who was watching the scene with equal surprise. "Your daughter is truly remarkable," he said. "Sometimes I think she's wiser than I am," Helena replied with a proud smile. When the time finally came to say goodbye, the girls hugged tightly, promising to see each other again soon. Helena and Eric arranged their next meeting for the following weekend, a picnic in the park, as the girls had wished. "Thank you for today," Helena said, as they said goodbye at the door. "It was important for Greta, for both of us, really." Eric held her hand for a moment longer than necessary. "Thanks are mine. You've brought something back to this house that's been missing for a long time." When Helena's car drove off, Sophia stood waving at the door until it disappeared around the bend in the street. Then she turned to her father with a radiant smile. "I really liked Greta, Dad. She'll be my best friend forever." Eric hugged his daughter, feeling immense gratitude for the little heroine who had not only helped find Sophia, but who was now helping her find her joy again. "And her mother?" Sophia asked, looking at her father curiously. "Did you like her?" The question caught Eric off guard. "Yeah, she seems like a really nice person. Why?" Sophia shrugged, with that expression of someone who knows more than she lets on. "Nothing. It's just that you two talked a lot and you smiled a lot. It's been a while since I've seen you smile like that." Eric was speechless for a moment, surprised by his daughter's insightful observation. Before he could respond, Sophia had already run inside, calling for Rosa to tell her about her new friend. Alone on the porch, Eric found himself thinking about Helena, her open smile, her quiet strength, the way she spoke about her life without self-pity or bitterness. There was something about her that drew him to her, something beyond the gratitude he felt for his daughter. For the first time in a long time, Eric felt a sensation he had almost forgotten: hope. Not only for Sophia's recovery, but also for the possibility that maybe, just maybe, life still had good surprises in store for him too. The date of Tobias and Marcelo's trial was approaching. For Eric, it was like a dark cloud hanging over his newfound sense of hope. He didn't want to relive those moments, much less expose Sophia to more trauma. But he knew it was inevitable. His testimony would be crucial in ensuring that those responsible for his daughter's suffering were properly punished. One Wednesday morning, while drinking coffee in his office at the company, he received a visit from Rodrigo, the police officer who had coordinated Sophia's rescue. "How are you guys?" Rodrigo asked, accepting the cup Eric offered him. "Getting better, little by little. Sophia has made a new friend, Greta, the girl who helped us that day. It's been therapeutic for her." Rodrigo smiled. "I'm glad to hear that. Children have an incredible capacity for recovery." Eric knew the officer wasn't just there to check on his well-being. "Trial is coming soon, isn't it?" "Yes, that's what I came to talk about. The prosecution wants to prepare you for testimony. It will be challenging, Eric. Tobias's defense is trying to build a narrative that he was manipulated by Marcelo, that he never intended to hurt Sophia." Eric felt anger rise in his throat. "This is absurd. He planned the whole thing, Rodrigo. He used his closeness to my family to hurt us in the worst way possible." "I know," Rodrigo soothed, "and we'll prove it. But you need to be prepared to hear difficult things during the trial. The defense will play dirty." They spent the next hour discussing strategy, what to expect, how to behave. Eric felt exhausted just from the anticipation. "What about Sophia?" he asked finally. "Will she have to testify?" "We are doing everything we can to prevent that. Your testimony, along with Greta's and the physical evidence we have, should be enough. But the final decision is up to the judge." The thought of Sophia having to face Tobias in court made Eric's blood boil. She had made so much progress in the past few weeks, going back to school, doing normal activities, sleeping better. A confrontation with her kidnapper could undo all that progress. "I will do whatever it takes to protect her," he said firmly. Rodrigo nodded understandingly. "I know you do, and we'll be by your side in this battle, Eric." After the police officer left, Eric remained in his office, lost in dark thoughts. The conversation had brought back emotions he had tried to suppress: anger, fear, an almost primal desire for revenge against Tobias. His phone rang, breaking him out of his trance. It was Helena. "Eric? I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Important." Hearing his voice brought immediate relief. "Not at all. In fact, you called at the perfect time. Did something happen? You seem tense." It was amazing how, even over the phone, she could sense his emotional state. In just a few weeks, Helena had become a constant, comforting presence in his life. After the picnic in the park, a cathartic event for Sophia, who had bravely faced her fears, they had started seeing each other regularly, sometimes with the girls, sometimes just the two of them, for dinner or walks. "The trial is approaching," he explained. "I just had a meeting with the police officer who coordinated Sophia's rescue." "Oh, Eric, it must be so hard to have to relive all of this." "Yes, but what worries me most is Sophia. There's a possibility that she might have to testify." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "If that happens, we will be there to support her. Greta has said she wants to be there, whether as a witness or just as a friend." Little Greta's loyalty and courage continued to impress Eric. "Your daughter is amazing, Helena, just like you." He could almost feel her smile through the phone. "Actually, I called to invite you two to an event at school this weekend. We're having a science fair, and Greta is super excited about her project. She really wants Sophia to see it." "It looks perfect. I'm sure Sophia will love it." They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Eric noticed that the weight on his chest had lifted significantly. This was what Helena did for him. She brought light even in the darkest moments. That night, while having dinner with Sophia, Eric mentioned the invitation to the science fair. Laurie is going to present a project about bees and how important they are for the environment, Eric explained. She invited us to come and see it. Sophia's eyes lit up with excitement. Can we go, Dad? Please? Of course. I thought you'd like the idea. Sophia bit her lip thoughtfully. I've never been to a science fair. What's it like? It's an event where students present scientific projects that they created themselves. There are experiments, explanatory posters, models. It's very fun and educational. Do you think one day I could do a project too? She asked with that childish curiosity that made Eric so happy. Sure, when you're a little older. We can start thinking about ideas now if you want. Sophia nodded enthusiastically, already imagining possibilities. The conversation then turned to other subjects until unexpectedly the girl asked, Dad, am I going to have to talk to Uncle Tobias again? The question caught Eric off guard. It was the first time Sophia had mentioned Tobias spontaneously since the kidnapping. Why are you asking this, Mila? I heard you talking to Uncle Marcus about the trial. Is it true that I'm going to have to go there and tell him what happened? Eric felt his heart sink. Sophia had overheard their private conversation. How much had she understood? How could she explain the justice system to a 7-year-old? Mila, what happened to you was very wrong, and the people who did this need to answer for their actions. There is a place called a court where a judge decides what should happen to these people. Like a punishment? She asked, trying to understand. Something like that, yes, and sometimes to help the judge decide, the people involved need to tell what happened. And I'm going to have to tell? Eric hesitated. We're trying to prevent that, Princess. I and others will tell you what we know so you don't have to relive those moments. Sophia was silent for a few moments, processing the information. But if I need to go, I will. I'm not afraid of Uncle Tobias. The statement, so brave coming from such a young child, filled Eric with pride and sadness simultaneously. You're the bravest person I know, you know that? He said, stroking his daughter's face. But leave that to the adults, okay? Your job now is to be a child, to play, to have fun with Greta, to learn new things. Sophia nodded, looking relieved. Laurie said she wants to be a detective or a scientist when she grows up. And you, Dad, what did you want to be when you were little? The change of subject to something lighter was welcome. Well, I've always wanted to build things, buildings, bridges, houses. That's why I became a civil engineer. And do you like your job? Yes, I do. It's gratifying to see something you planned take shape, become real. Sophia considered this for a moment. I think I want to be a veterinarian or maybe an astronaut or a painter. Eric laughed. You have time to figure it out, and it can be anything you want it to be. The weekend arrived quickly. Greta's school science fair was a lively affair, with the playground filled with colorful booths where students of all ages presented their projects. Sophia was enthralled, running from one exhibit to the next, taking it all in with the natural curiosity of children. Greta stood proudly beside her project, an elaborate model showing a complete ecosystem with an emphasis on the role of bees. In pollination, when she saw Sophia and Eric, she waved enthusiastically. You came, she exclaimed, hugging her friend. Your project is incredible, Laurie, said Sophia, admiring the model with fascination. Helena approached, wearing a simple but elegant dress. Eric couldn't help but notice how beautiful she looked, with her curly hair loose and a light lipstick. I'm glad you came, she said, greeting them. Greta was counting the minutes. We wouldn't miss it for the world, Eric replied. This place is amazing. You guys did an amazing job. Helena smiled, proud not only of her daughter but of the entire school community. It's a collective effort. Public education has its challenges, but it also has passionate educators and brilliant students. While the girls were busy presenting Greta to the judges, Eric and Helena walked around the courtyard, looking at the other projects. How was your week? She asked, noticing something different about Eric. Intense. The trial starts next week. I'm nervous, to be honest. Helena took his hand in a spontaneous gesture of support. It's going to be hard, but you're strong, Eric, and you're not alone in this. He squeezed her hand, grateful for the gesture. Lately, he had grown accustomed to Helena's silent support, her comforting presence. He was increasingly certain that his feelings for her went beyond friendship. Helena, he began, unsure of how to express what he felt. He was interrupted by Marcus, who surprisingly appeared at the fair. His friend looked agitated, his face grave. Eric, we need to talk. It's urgent. Helena, realizing the seriousness of the situation, discreetly walked away. I'm going to check on the girls. I'll see you later. When she walked away, Eric turned to Marcus. What happened? I just found out that Tobias is asking for a deal with the prosecution. He wants to confess everything, implicate Marcelo as the mastermind, in exchange for a reduced sentence. The news came as a bombshell. He's lying. You know as well as I do that it was his idea. I know that, but he is offering information about Marcelo's other crimes, things that the police are interested in, and what's more, he wants to talk to you, personally. Eric felt his blood run cold. With me? Why? I'm not sure. He said he has information he just wants to reveal directly to you. Something about why he did what he did. Eric shook his head in disbelief. I don't want to hear your excuses, Marcus. I don't care why he did it. Nothing justifies what he did to my daughter. I completely understand. But Rodrigo thinks it might be helpful to the case to hear what he has to say. It could strengthen the case. Eric closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The last thing he wanted was to be in the same space as Tobias, to look into the face of the man who had betrayed his trust in the worst possible way. But if it would help ensure he received the proper punishment, when would that be? Tomorrow at the police station, with all necessary security measures. Rodrigo will be present the entire time. Eric nodded slowly. Fine, I'll talk to him. But not for my sake, but for the justice that Sophia deserves. The conversation was interrupted by shouts of joy. Greta was running towards him, with Sophia and Helena right behind her. We won second place, the girl exclaimed, showing a silver medal. The judge said our project about bees was super important. Forcing a smile, Eric bent down to congratulate her. That's fantastic, Greta. I'm so proud of you. Sophia jumped with excitement next to her friend. Dad, can I do a project with Larry next year, please? His daughter's innocence and joy contrasted painfully with the dark thoughts now occupying Eric's mind. How could he tell her that tomorrow he would face the man who had caused them both so much pain? Of course, Princess, he replied, trying to maintain normality. You will make an unbeatable duo. Helena, always perceptive, noticed the change. In his mood, as the girls ran to show the medal to other teachers, she approached. Is everything okay? You look shaken. Eric hesitated, unsure whether he should share something so heavy on a day that was supposed to be one of celebration. But the genuine concern in Helena's eyes convinced him. Tobias wants to see me tomorrow. The surprise and worry on her face were evident. Are you sure you want to do this? Face him like this? No, I'm not sure, but I feel like I need to, for Sophia and maybe for myself too, to close this chapter once and for all. Helena squeezed his arm gently. If you need someone to talk to later, I'm here. Day or night? The sincere offer touched Eric deeply. Thank you, that means a lot to me. The rest of the afternoon was spent in a dual emotional state for Eric. On one hand, the joy of seeing Sophia so happy, interacting normally with other children, absorbing knowledge with enthusiasm. On the other, the growing apprehension about the confrontation that awaited him the next day. When it was time to leave, Eric said goodbye to Helena with a longer hug than usual. He needed that contact, that security that she emanated. It's going to be okay, she whispered in his ear. You're stronger than you think. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Eric sat in his office for hours, ruminating over his thoughts, mentally preparing himself for what was to come. What truths did Tobias want to reveal? What lies would he try to tell? And most importantly, how would Eric react to seeing again the face of the man who had nearly destroyed his family? Sleep came late and was restless. In his dreams, Tobias, Marcelo, and Sophia were mixed together in confusing and distressing scenes. He woke before dawn, exhausted but determined. It was time to face his demons. The police station was silent that Monday morning. Eric, accompanied by Marcus and Rodrigo, walked through the hallways with heavy footsteps, each echoing like a reminder of what he was about to face. He had spent the previous night with Sophia, watching movies and playing as if it were an ordinary, a day trying not to show the inner storm that consumed him. "He's in interrogation room 3, Rodrigo said, stopping in front of a grey door. "Remember, you don't have to stay any longer than necessary. You can end the conversation at any time." Eric nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'm ready." As he entered the room, Tobias's first sight was shocking. The man he had known as elegant, always impeccably dressed, was now wearing the standard prison uniform. His face was thinner, with deep circles under his eyes, and he had lost that confident posture that had always characterized him. "Eric," Tobias said, his voice barely above a whisper, "thank you for coming." Eric remained silent, sitting. At the metal table that separated them, Rodrigo stood near the door, a silent but watchful presence. "I know you hate me," Tobias continued, when it became clear that Eric wasn't going to initiate the conversation, "and you have every right to. What I did, there's no justification." "Then why did you do it?" Eric finally asked, his voice surprisingly calm. "Why, Tobias? We were friends. I trusted you. Sophia trusted you." Tobias looked down, unable to hold eye contact. "It started as envy. Simple, petty envy. You had it all: success, respect, a family. Even after Ingrid left, you still had Sophia. You had a clear purpose in life." Eric listened impassively as Tobias continued. "Then, the envy turned into resentment. Every time a project of mine was postponed because you had to take care of Sophia. Every time an idea of mine was ignored because you were busy with personal matters, the resentment grew. So you decided to take revenge through my daughter, an innocent child." Tobias rubbed his face with his hands, a gesture of profound exhaustion. "It wasn't planned that way initially. The idea was just to scare you, make you feel what it's like to lose control for a few hours, maybe extort some money, humiliate you a little, but it evolved into a real kidnapping with real threats. Marcelo," Tobias hesitated, "he saw a bigger opportunity. He convinced me that we could win a lot more if we raised the stakes. And I got carried away." Eric felt anger rise inside him. "Don't try to blame Marcelo. You were my friend, my colleague. You knew exactly what you were doing." "Yes, I knew," Tobias admitted, surprising Eric with his candor. "And that's why I wanted to talk to you, not to apologize. I know that's unforgivable, but so you understand that none of this was your fault." "My fault?" Eric repeated, confused. "I've been watching from afar. I know you've been blaming yourself, thinking you neglected the company, that you should have seen my signs, that you failed to protect Sophia. But the truth is, you've always been an exemplary father and a fair leader. The moral failing was all mine." Eric was momentarily speechless. How did Tobias know the thoughts that plagued him during his sleepless nights? "What you did to Sophia left scars that may never completely go away," he said finally. "She has nightmares, fear of strangers, separation anxiety. A 7-year-old shouldn't have to go through any of that." Tobias closed his eyes, visibly affected. "I know that, and if I could go back—" "But you can't," Eric interrupted. "No one can. Now all we can do is move on." A heavy silence fell between them. Eric studied the man in front of him, someone he had known for years, with whom he had shared projects, ideas, leisure time. How had he not noticed the growing envy, the accumulated resentment? "There's something else you need to know," Tobias said finally. "About Marcelo." Eric raised an eyebrow questioningly. "He's not just a criminal hired to help me. He has a personal vendetta against you. Something related to a project your company developed years ago on the land where his family lived. A forced removal, if I'm not mistaken." The revelation came as a bombshell. Eric tried to remember. Müller Inc. had participated in dozens of urban revitalization projects over the years. Inevitably, some had involved evictions, always within the law, with adequate compensation. "I'm telling you this because he made threats," Tobias continued. "Even from here, even from prison, he said he would find a way to continue what we started. You need to stay alert, Eric, for your sake and for Sophia's." The warning chilled Eric's blood. The thought that the nightmare might not be completely over. "I will ensure that this information is investigated thoroughly," Rodrigo said, speaking for the first time since the meeting began. "If there is any indication of a continued threat, we will take action." Eric stood up, feeling he had heard enough. "Is that all, Tobias?" The architect nodded slowly. "Just one more thing. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but tell Sophia I'm sorry deeply. She is a special child. I never meant to truly hurt her. You lost the right to send any message to my daughter the moment you decided to use her in your sick plan," Eric replied coldly. "Goodbye, Tobias." With those words, he turned and left the room, feeling a confusing mix of emotions: anger, sadness, relief, and something he hadn't expected. Pity. Pity for the man Tobias had become, consumed by envy and bitterness to the point of destroying not only the lives of others, but his own as well. Marcus was waiting for him in the hallway, anxious. "How was it?" "Enlightening in a way," Eric replied as they walked toward the exit, "but also disturbing. Marcelo apparently has personal reasons for hating me, something to do with an old company project." "I'll go through all our files," Marcus promised immediately. "If there's such a connection, we'll find it." Eric nodded, grateful for his friend's unwavering loyalty. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything. I don't know what I would do without you by my side through all of this." Life. "Partners, remember," Marcus smiled, referring to the motto they had created when they founded the company together decades ago. "Through thick and thin." As he left the police station, Eric felt the sun on his face like a blessing. Despite the disturbing revelations, a sense of closure was beginning to form. He had faced Tobias, looked into the eyes of the man who had betrayed his trust, and survived. It was an important step in his own healing process. His phone rang. It was Helena. "How was it?" she asked without preamble. "Hard but necessary," Eric replied, feeling immediate relief just from hearing her voice. "Can I tell you the details?" "Later? Right now I just want to see Sophia, hold her, make sure she's okay." "Sure, the girls are at my house making cookies. Why don't you come over?" The invitation was exactly what Eric needed. Normalcy, human warmth, the laughter of children, to dispel the shadows of his encounter with Tobias. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Helena's apartment was small but cozy, decorated in vibrant colors and filled with books. When he arrived, Eric was greeted by a flower-covered Sophia, with a smile so wide that it instantly dispelled the tension he was carrying. "Dad, we made chocolate chip cookies, lots and lots of them." Eric hugged her, not caring about the flour that now stained his expensive suit. "Really? Can I try it on?" "They're still in the oven," explained Greta, also covered in flour. "But there won't be much left." Helena watched the scene with a tender smile. When the girls returned to the kitchen to check on the cookies, she approached Eric. "You look lighter," he commented. "It's weird, but yes, I feel that way. Confronting Tobias was cathartic, I guess. It didn't solve everything, far from it, but it was an important step." Helena nodded understandingly. The healing journey is rarely linear. It's small steps, some forward, some back. The important thing is to keep moving. Eric watched her. Her simple wisdom, her quiet strength, her welcoming smile. Without much thought, he leaned in and kissed her softly. It was a brief, almost hesitant kiss, but it was loaded with meaning. When he pulled away, he saw surprise in Helena's eyes, but also something else, a gleam that reflected his own growing feelings. "Sorry," he muttered. "I should have asked first." Helena smiled, blushing slightly. "Don't apologize. I've been thinking about this for a while now." The moment was interrupted by the girls, enthusiastically announcing that the cookies were ready. But something had changed between Eric and Helena. An invisible barrier had been broken, opening the way to possibilities they had both been hesitant to acknowledge until now. The afternoon passed in an atmosphere of relaxed joy. The girls devoured still warm cookies, made plans for more science projects, and played board games. Eric and Helena joined in, exchanging occasional knowing glances, both silently acknowledging that something new and promising had begun. When it was time to leave, the girls protested, as they always did. For them, there was never enough time together. "What if we had more time?" Sophia suggested suddenly. "What if we lived closer?" The innocence of the question brought smiles to the adults. "Well, that would require some complicated changes, Mila," Eric explained gently. "Why, our house is big. Larry and Aunt Ju could live there." The direct, childish suggestion caused a moment of awkward silence, followed by nervous laughter from Eric and Helena. "It doesn't quite work that way, dear," Helena said, trying to keep the blush from her cheeks. "But it's a very kind thought." In the car on the way home, Sophia continued to develop her plan. "It would be perfect, Dad. Larry could share my room or have the guest room, and Aunt Ju could stay in the room next to yours. That way you could talk at night, like you and Mum." "Used to do." Eric nearly choked on his daughter's insightful observation. "Mila, remember what we talked about respecting other people's space and time? Helena and Greta have their own lives, just like we have ours." "But you like her, don't you?" Sophia insisted. "You smile differently when she's around. It's like the smile you had in the pictures with Mommy." The comparison struck Eric deeply. It was true. There was something about Helena's presence that stirred feelings in him that he'd believed had been buried along with Ingrid. "Yes, I like her," he finally admitted. "She's a very special person, but adult relationships are complicated, Princess. We need time." Sophia seemed satisfied with the answer. "Okay, but know that I approve, okay?" Eric couldn't help but chuckle at the comical seriousness with which his daughter uttered these words. "I'm very glad to have your approval, miss." At home, while preparing Sophia for bed, Eric was surprised by a call from Rodrigo. "I have news," the officer said. "We have found the connection to Marcelo. His full name is Marcelo Silveira. His family was one of those displaced during the Alameda Central project 8 years ago. There was a legal dispute, allegations of inadequate compensation." Eric vaguely remembered the case. Alameda Central had been one of Muller Inc.'s first major projects, a commercial and residential complex that had revitalized a rundown area of the city. There had been resistance from some residents, but everything had been resolved within legal parameters. "What does that mean now?" he asked. "It means his threats may be more serious than we thought. We are increasing our surveillance, and I suggest you increase security at your home and business, at least until the trial is over, and we know the extent of his network of contacts." Eric thanked her for the warning, ending the call with a renewed sense of unease. When he returned to Sophia's room, he found her already asleep, hugging her doll. Watching her sleep, so peaceful and innocent, Eric made a silent promise. Nothing and no one would ever hurt her again. He would do whatever it took to ensure her safety. In the days that followed, Eric implemented additional security measures, cameras, alarms, a private security guard to accompany Sophia to school. Life went on, but with a new layer of precaution. The trial of Tobias and Marcelo continued, with Eric testifying as needed. Greta had also given courageous testimony, describing with stunning accuracy what she had seen that fateful day in the park. And in the midst of all this, Eric and Helena's relationship blossomed. Discreet meetings, dinners after the girls went to bed, long conversations on the phone. Both moved forward cautiously, respecting their own fears and insecurities, but undeniably attracted to each other. On a sunny Sunday, almost 2 months after the kidnapping, the two families gathered again in the park, the same park that had been the scene of so much fear and pain. But today it was a place of laughter, of picnics, of new memories being made. As the girls played on the swings, Eric and Helena watched, sitting on a nearby bench. "It's amazing how they overcame all of this," Helena said. "Children have a capacity for healing that we adults often lose." Eric nodded, his eyes fixed on Sophia, who laughed carelessly as Greta pushed her on the swing. "They teach us so much, about resilience, about forgiveness, about moving on, and about opening your heart to new possibilities," Helena added, placing her hand over his. Eric laced his fingers through hers, feeling a surge of gratitude for everything life had given him, and taken away, and then given back in unexpected ways. "You know," he said after a moment's thought, "Sophia asked me the other day if one day we could all live together." Helena raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Really? And what did you say?" "You said adult relationships are complicated and take time." Eric hesitated, gathering his courage. "But the truth is, for the first time since I lost Ingrid, I can imagine a shared future with someone. With you." Helena's eyes shone with restrained emotion. "Eric, I'm not asking for anything right now," he was quick to clarify. "I just want you to know that I'm open to possibilities, that you and Greta have brought something back into our lives that I thought was lost forever. Hope," Helena added. "Understanding. Yes, hope and joy and love." The word hung between them, meaningful, powerful.